Want me to do it, I'll do it.
Jennifer, did you have your statement, or did I grab it? Oh, I grabbed it. Okay. And I still have the request to speak, so. I have request to speak. Sorry. Thank you. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our statement of values? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interest of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so that we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call, City Clerk.
Councilmember Mahan. Here. O'Neill.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Watanabe.
Here.
Kolstad.
Here.
And Mayor Gilmore.
Here. Reports of actions taken in closed session. City Attorney.
There were no reportable actions in closed session.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about continuances and exceptions, and I'm going to first start with our city clerk. We're going to take a few items out of order this evening, dispense with a few in the very beginning just to accommodate the crowd that's here this evening. So, but we do have some additional action to take. City clerk?
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a few announcements. Due to the number of potential speakers, the meeting may run very late. And because we have a lengthy agenda, if anyone would like to seek a continuance for an item, please come and see me and we can accommodate that as needed. I'd like to note that there is a letter of resignation from Councilmember Caserta that is placed at the dais, and there are copies available for the public in the back over near the agenda. So the first item that the council should consider is to note and file that letter of resignation. I'd also like to note that we would like to please take a couple of items out of order.
If we could deal with that first.
Sure.
So is there a motion to note and file? I don't see we have it on our computer screen. It was added additional items. So what would you like us to do?
So we should call for any members of the council that would like to speak, just simply on the noting and filing of the letter of resignation.
So just a verbal motion, then?
Correct.
Is there a motion to accept?
You should first add it to the agenda and then vote on it.
Is there a motion to add this to the agenda?
Motion to add the letter, the resignation letter to the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Okay.
We need
How would you like us to vote?
One moment.
Okay. We have a new system. It takes a little bit when we don't have something on the agenda. So please bear with us. Please register your vote to add this to the agenda.
Waiting for one.
Please register your vote, everyone.
I don't get my little voter thing here.
Join.
We need to go out again.
Make sure he's joined.
There we go. It's coming.
It's coming. And that passes unanimously. And so the next action is to accept the letter of resignation
Motion to accept.
and to note and file the letter.
Okay, motion to accept and note and file.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion second. Any discussion on that? Okay, please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. All right, thank you. So next, Jennifer, I think you have some statements to make.
So we have a couple of other exceptions to the agenda. Well, we would like to take item number 5 out of order, which is the action on the sponsorship of the American Legion Santa Clara Post 419's annual car show on June 9th, 2018. And I'd like to note that there is also a request for continuance for item number 8, which is a public hearing action on the 4-unit development project located at 1075 Pomeroy Avenue. So both of those are exceptions to the agenda. And then, of course, item number 3, consideration of actions in response to City Council members' conduct, we would like to take as the first item after you commence with those other smaller items.
Okay, so can we take that all in one motion, City Attorney, to move, or do you want them separately?
As long as you think there'll be a consistent vote on that, you can do it all as one motion.
Okay, so we're going to defer item 8 to a date to be determined. We're going to move the item number 5, the American Legion, since they waited till the end of the agenda last Tuesday. We promised them we'd bring them up to after item 1B. And then we're going to move item 3 to after item 5 in the beginning of the agenda. Is there a motion for that? Oh, City Clerk?
Second. Teresa.
So we're going to hear item 1A, 1B, 5, and then 3. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, first we have a special order of business, which is item 1A. We had interviews for the vacancy on the Parks and Recreation Commission, the vacancy that ends, term ending June 30th, 2019. Do we have a motion for an appointment?
I request light on.
Councilmember Mahan.
Thank you. First, let me say we had 3 excellent candidates, but we only have 1 opening. So I would move that we appoint Bert Field to the Parks and Rec Commission for the term ending June 2019, and encourage the 2 applicants to come back and apply again for this commission or others, because they were all outstanding people.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Field, and thank you so much to all those others who applied. Unfortunately, we only had 1 opening, but you were excellent candidates. All right, thank you. The next item we have is an item that is taking place this Friday at our senior center, and it's a promotion of the Be Strong, Live Long Health and Wellness Fair on Friday, May 18th, and I think we have representatives from the Senior Commission that would like to tell us about it. This would be the 2nd annual health fair, I believe. Yes. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Grant McCauley. I'm on the Senior Advisory Commission, and I'd like to say good evening to Mayor Gilmore, the City Council, city staff, and all the citizens of Santa Clara. We started on this about a year and a half ago to get the designation as an age-friendly city from the World Health Organization. We did that, and one of the things that we committed to was to have working goals that we would do every year. So last year we did the Health and Wellness Fair at the Senior Center, and it was so popular that we've decided we're bringing it back as an annual event. It is this Friday, May 18th, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Fremont Park, which is adjacent to the Senior Center in Santa Clara. This is an event that last year we only had 20 exhibitors. This year we have over 40. And we have optimizing the opportunities for everybody to get health resources for those that are senior citizens or for those that are taking care of senior citizens. Last year we had minimal support and assistance from Kaiser Hospital. This year Kaiser Hospital is a major sponsor. They're bringing in their brand new Kaiser Mobile Clinic, and they're going to be doing free skin cancer screening. We have the Lions Club headed up by Steve Silva. We'll be doing the free vision and hearing screening in their trailer. And we have the volunteer staff from the Senior Wellness Fair staff that will be doing blood pressure screening. We also have a volunteer staff from the Senior Center that will be giving tours of the Senior Center. The library is bringing in their new bookmobile to display it. And of course, there's going to be a barbecue lunch, and because of a generous donation from Kaiser Hospital, we were able to lower the price of the lunch this year to $5 for a healthy lunch. And we're setting up picnic tables under the trees at Fremont Park, so you can come have lunch, see the fair, and socialize with your friends. So the Senior Advisory Commission would really like to thank the Kaiser Permanente Hospital, the Santa Clara Library, the Santa Clara Lions Club, the Senior Center, and the Parks and Recreation Department. And I cordially invite every one of you to attend this, to step by and walk through and see what your Senior Advisory Commission and your Senior Center is doing for the senior citizens of Santa Clara. Thank you.
Thank you. I attended last year. It was fabulous. I learned so much, and this year it sounds like it's going to be twice as good. So thank you, Grant, for bringing that forward. And thanks to the Senior Commission. I know they worked really, really hard on this. So I want to see everybody there on Friday. Okay, the next item we have is we've moved up item 5, which is action on sponsorship of the American Legion Santa Clara Post 419's annual car show on June 9th, 2018. Welcome back.
Earlier.
It's early this time.
We promised we'd put you up front.
Yes, you did, and thank you for fulfilling that promise. Good evening, Mayor Gilmore and council members. My name is Rick Gundo. I'm with the American Legion, Post 419 in Santa Clara. For over 10 years, we've been putting on a car show. This car show, the net proceeds from the car show goes out to veteran support programs. And we've been doing this for more than 10 years. And as time goes on and the city changes, we start to get involved with permitting. Last year, we had 2 permits, encroachment permit and an amplification permit. So prior to that, we also had the amplification and encroachment permit. However, last year, the cost of the permits were going to go up 3-fold. So we came to council last year looking to get some assistance from council to reduce these costs. And fortunately, last year, motion was made. Councilwoman Debbie Davis made that. And it was approved by council to sponsor American Legion car shows. So this year, in March, I started to do the proper paperwork to apply for those 2 permits, the encroachment and amplification. And I was told to go see the city manager's office because there's been some changes. So I talked to staff over there at the city manager's office, and I've been working with her ever since. And it turns out that what we need to do this year is to have the encroachment permit, the outdoor amplification permit, but also there was a special event application, and then ultimately leading to a special permit for nonprofits. So last year's cost was $409. Again, the city sponsored us. This year, the total cost is $679.10. So almost double, almost double. So again, we're looking to the city, if you're going to continue to sponsor us, which we greatly appreciate, we're asking that one, that you be able to cover the costs. And then two, how can we streamline this process so that we're not standing in front of you folks and you're not spending the time having to deal with this sponsorship. I know the city attorney last week stated that they are working on a process of some sort.
Right.
But I'm sure this will be beneficial to other nonprofits as well.
Right. All right, well, thank you very much. Vice Mayor Watanabe?
Thank you, Mayor. We would like to be able to help you out and go ahead and take care of what was done last year, and that is, I would like to make a motion that the council sponsor the American Legion Post, sponsor the American Legion Post 419 annual car show, and authorize the city manager to issue the following three city permits: an encroachment permit, an outdoor amplification of music permit, and then the special event application, and ask that that money be transferred from funds from unassigned reserve community promotions in the amount of $679.10.
Second.
Okay, there's motion and a second. I think, Councilmember Mahan, did you want to speak on that? No, sorry. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? None. Please register your vote. Thank you. That passes unanimously, and thank you for coming back this week and for your patience last week.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. All right, the next item we are moving up is item 3, which is consideration of actions in response to city council members' conduct. And I know we have taken some new action at the beginning of today's meeting, but City Clerk, I think you have some information to read in the record before we get started on this one.
Yes, and Mayor, if you'll please indulge me, there was a member of the public that was going to seek a continuance for item number 9, and I don't know if they'd like to come forward.
Oh, item number 9, this is first.
Just to seek a continuance, one more continuance request.
Okay, is this item number 9?
That's the 1075.
Is that?
That's 8.
No,
That's-
okay.
We already
deferred
Okay,
8.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Continued 8.
You continued.
Yes.
We needed to know that. We got
Yeah,
people in
oh,
the
thank
audience.
you. Sorry, we did in the very beginning of the meeting. Item number 9, there's a request for continuance. Okay, for a week? Okay, is there a motion to continue?
So moved.
Motion second to continue item number 9.
So
I
I'm
don't know why you're
confirming
at the end of the agenda.
May 22nd.
May 22nd, date certain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to take a minute?
I don't see the continuance. We need to vote on the continuance to continue this to May 22nd? Okay, oh, this is American Legion car show.
Number 9?
It's showing as 5.
Oh.
American Legion was Kathy and me.
No, we did that already.
It's okay. Why don't you just...
We'll
we can
vote
just
on
do-
this one, but we really mean 9.
Old school? You want old school?
Technology. Let's
you could
raise
just
our
do-
hands.
You could just
All
do
vote aye.
verbal vote. Thank you.
And that passes.
The machine is
Okay.
not quite working, so we'll just note that it's unanimous. vote.
Is
Thank you.
unanimous, correct?
Yes.
Anyone? Okay, thank you very much. All right, now, back to item number 3. City Clerk, did you have some information to read?
I actually
Please.
have 2 things I would like to read, please. First, I'd like to make an announcement of the Statement of Behavioral Standards. The City of Santa Clara has adopted a code of ethics and values and behavioral standards for public meetings to promote and maintain the highest levels of conduct. This includes mutual respect, robust discussion, and allowing city business to be done in an efficient and consistent manner. Please note that, as the presiding officer, the mayor's direction in matters of process and decorum should be followed, and that use of the gavel indicates all conversations must conclude and everyone in attendance should come to order and attention. And I'd also like to note that for members of the public present, additional security measures by our police and fire departments have been put in place for tonight's meeting. Their uniformed presence is meant to ensure the safety and security for all of us attending this meeting. If the council chambers reaches maximum capacity as determined by the fire marshal, there's additional space in the cafeteria, which will be equipped with a live broadcast on a television. The mayor will read 3 names to allow members of the public to line up and have their time to come to the chambers from the cafeteria as needed. We do have speaker cards available here in the front, but there is no obligation to complete it. Any victims of alleged sexual harassment or misconduct may contact the police department by calling 408-615-5580 or visiting the police department at 601 El Camino Real. If any member of the public decides to voluntarily speak and you are a potential victim or a victim advocate, please be advised that police officers are available here tonight should you wish to sit down with them in a confidential setting, and we have a police officer here that can guide you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So tonight's agenda, we have consideration of actions in response to a city council member's conduct. And I know that many of us were here. For those that arrived a little bit late, we tendered the resignation of city council member Dominic Caserta earlier today, and we've voted on accepting it this evening. So tonight we're going to not only hear from the public, and I think that's the main reason for this today, but also to look at an issue of a censure policy that we do not have in place, and that I'm going to ask the council to consider this evening, at least putting a censure policy in place. A lot of the other actions that we were going to potentially take this evening are no longer necessary since the council member has resigned. So tonight we're going to have an opportunity to hear from our public, discuss this among ourselves, and hear from our city manager in terms of, city attorney in terms of the censure policy that we're considering this evening. City Attorney, did you have anything to say about that at this point?
No, at this point, unless the council would like to act first on the censure policy to at least enact it, or do you want to hear from the public first?
I'm wondering if we could hear about the censure policy first. I know we're going to take some action at the end, but unless you think it's appropriate to talk about it afterwards.
Yeah, I can talk about it right now.
Yes,
if
I
you'd
would
like.
appreciate that.
So the censure policy is designed to provide the level of due process to be accorded a member of a body that runs under Robert's Rules of Order. Under Robert's Rules of Order, a body can censure one of its members, but the case law indicates that it's a wise practice to afford any member of a body, such a body, the ability to have notice of the potential censure and an ability to contest that in whatever way they would like. In the case of our particular censure policy, it's simply a policy that we will have in place along with your other policies that are available to the public, and it provides a framework for you to have this discussion. So there's a variety of levels of discussion you can have with respect to other members when they deviate from either one of your policies or from the law, and the procedure that's outlined in the draft policy that's attached to the report is designed to provide the procedures that you should follow if you want to take the step of actually censuring someone. There's a less serious action that you could take with respect to a member, and that's referred to as admonishment, and you don't need the level of due process required for an actual resolution of censure. Just by way of noting, I think it's probably appropriate for me at this point to read at least the preamble to the Code of Ethics and Values, which was adopted by the City Council, I think it was more than a decade ago. So I'm just going to read the first paragraph, and it says, "The proper operation of democratic government requires that decision makers be independent, impartial, and accountable to the people they serve. The City of Santa Clara has adopted this code of ethics and values to promote and maintain the highest standards of personal and professional conduct in the city's government. All elected and appointed officials, city employees, volunteers, and others who participate in the city government are required to subscribe to this code, understand how it applies to their specific responsibilities, and practice its 8 core values in their work. Because we seek public confidence in the city's services and public trust of its decision makers, our decisions and work must meet the most demanding and ethical standards and demonstrate the highest levels of achievement in following this code. And I'd just like to read the very first goal, as well as the first subsection under that. It says, as a representative of the City of Santa Clara, I will be ethical. In practice, this value looks like, A, I am trustworthy, acting with the utmost integrity and moral courage. So these are the standards that you ascribe to yourself, and I think it is proper and it is legal for the council to discuss a member's behavior under Robert's Rules of Order, as well as your adopted censure policy, to discuss whether a council member, a sitting council member, is adhering to the ethical standards that every council member must ascribe to when they come to be a council member for the city. And that's simply what the procedure is about. And by adopting the procedure, the policy, you would enable yourselves to take action with respect to any member of the council who you feel is starting to violate the city's ethical policy. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for the council, city attorney? Okay, seeing none. I asked the city manager to put this item on the agenda due to the news reports and allegations about inappropriate behavior of one of our council members. And I think on behalf of the council and the residents, it was really important for us to be able to talk about this and provide a community forum for the public to give us their thoughts. And also, if Councilmember Caserta was here, to give him an opportunity to answer those. Based on the actions today, I think it was the right decision for Councilmember Caserta to resign from office today. And I think that his actions have been a terrible stain on the city, and it's time for us to, come together as a city and to move forward. But it was really important that we take this, talk about it, address it, and allow our public an opportunity to give us their thoughts on this issue. So, Vice Mayor Watanabe, did you have anything before I go to the public?
I'll hold off until the public speaks. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else on the council? So I think this item is for the public, and I'm going to start reading names of people that I'd like to come up that have filled out speaker cards. And keep in mind, you don't have to fill out a speaker card. We'd like if you do, but you don't have to. It's not required. But if you'd like to come forward at the end, I'm going to call all those who have filled out speaker cards first, and then you're free to come up as you like. So the first speaker I have is LaDonna Silva, and then Tamara Pantic and Savannah Nunez. So I don't know if LaDonna's in the room now. Oh, there she is. Please come forward. And if Tamara and Savannah would like to queue up. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm LaDonna Silva. I am a board member of the YWCA, as well as a resident, of course, of Santa Clara. And, of course, my speech has changed. But I did want to thank you for bringing, of course, the topic up. And I wanted to share one of my initial responses of concern was you were asking people to come forward, possibly survivors of this experience, as well as have him in the room. And I was alarmed by that initially, but I trust there's a process, perhaps one I don't understand. But I do want to share an appreciation for you taking a stand for bringing this up. It takes a great deal, as some of you know, I'm a therapist and I listen to people every day attempting to find their voices after something difficult has happened. And it takes a great deal of courage to face that silence. So I trust that it'll be handled well by the police department as well as the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, LaDonna. Tamara, please come forward. Welcome.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Gilmore, council members. I'm Tamara Pantic. I'm a former student of Santa Clara High School as well as a former member of the Youth Commission. I'm here today to speak in regards to former council member Caserta's behavior. I was hoping he would be here this evening, but there's still something to be gained from hearing everyone's accounts. So, there are countless incidents in which Mr. Caserta's temper and desire for control have come through, but in my limited time here tonight, I'd like to recount what's happened to me personally in his classroom. During the second week of school, during a classroom competition, I made the error of pulling out my phone with the intent to record what was happening. The second it happened, I realized that I had not behaved appropriately for a classroom setting. I began to apologize, expecting to have my phone confiscated and perhaps sent to the office. Instead, the rage of a fully grown man fell upon me in front of my classmates. He screamed at me, called me disgusting and despicable, telling me I'd been one of his favorites, but was now the lowest of the low in his eyes. He told me I did not deserve to be in his classroom, that I should be kicked out and given a 0 for the semester, that it was illegal to record a teacher in his classroom. How dare I have the audacity to try it on him, and that he should have me escorted out for my behavior. I can't remember more, only that the tirade went on for what seemed like hours to me. Later in that class, he had me walk to the front of the room and unlock my phone for him, show him my photos and videos, and then show him the deleted folder on my phone to prove that the video, which I had stopped recording the moment I realized I should not have pulled out my phone, was gone. I was unable to attend for the rest of my classes that day. Instead, I sat in the SBO, unable to stop crying, as I was told by the administration to apologize to him and move on. I've always prided myself on my ability to speak in public, interact with authority figures, and assert myself with confidence. Following this incident, I was racked with anxiety. I could not enter his classroom without taking antacids to prevent myself from vomiting. I cried when asked to answer a question for a few weeks following the incident. Eventually, I put it away and was able to contribute in class and participate. And when I did, Mr. Caserta would reference the incident, saying things such as, "You're starting to get back in my good graces now," or "Look, everybody, tomorrow's almost one of my favorites once again." He loved to play favorites. Everyone in the classroom knew who they were.
You can continue.
He would heap compliments and admiration on them, give them extra credit for no reason other than they had pleased him somehow. When one of his favorites laughed at a joke he'd made in the classroom, he announced that he would receive 15 points of extra credit purely because he had laughed at his joke and he was one of his favorites. This is only one of the ways Mr. Caserta created an environment where success meant brown-nosing him. When he did decide to show up to class and teach us, he would often make work phone calls from class and badmouth the city council. He would tell us how useless and slow his fellow council members were, how hard it was for him being one of the youngest council members. He would also brag on numerous occasions about how happy he was to have been a lobbyist for the 49ers, his words, and that thanks to him, he had a Mercedes-Benz and a comfortable life. It is my belief that Mr. Caserta is not and has never been fit for public office. Frankly, I don't believe he's fit to act as an educator. If we were to discount his behavior, I do admit that he was a good lecturer and that his students did exceptionally well on the AP exam. However, this man is in no way fit to guide or shape young minds. He once asked his students whether we truly believed a politician's personal life or behavior outside of his career should affect his career. He tried to convince us that nothing should affect a man's career, be it gambling, infidelity, or whatever. I truly hope we've answered his question with these events. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Savannah Nunez, please come forward, and then Andrew Boone and Eric Stroker, if you'd like to queue up, please. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Savannah Nunez. I am Santa Clara resident. I am a former student of Mr. Caserta's, and yeah. So, 2006, 2007, I filed two formal complaints, two different principals regarding his sexual comments and behaviors in class, and regarding his harassing me all the time. He would always call me on my cell phone, call me nonstop, and leave voicemail after voicemail. He would show up at my work to see if I was working instead of being at school. He even showed up at my house over the weekend one time, trying to talk to me, wondering why it was that I wasn't having any of his advances. saw that I wasn't having any of it, and then he started bullying me. He would report my tardiness or absence to the school, saying that I was not going to be able to graduate. He would try all the time. Up until even the day before graduation, he reported me to the office saying that my shoes were out of dress code, saying that I shouldn't be allowed to walk. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. I just want to know who's going to be responsible for making sure that everything that's brought forward. I mean, 16 years of harassing people, of minors, you know, stalking them. That's a long time. And it's been brought up to the school board. It's been brought up to principals. It's been brought up to the school district, to the police officers. I mean, who's going to be held accountable? And why is he still teaching? He has no place. He's a sexual predator. He needs to be. He needs to register. He needs to be. It's just not right. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Very brave testimony. Andrew Boone, and then Eric after that. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Gilmore and City Council members. I first of all want to thank you, Mayor Gilmore, for making this an agenda item. I can imagine under many mayors, including the previous woman, it would just be ignored. You know, we wouldn't have a public forum to voice this at all. I don't know Mr. Caserta very well. I live in East Palo Alto. I come here when something is of regional importance, but I find what I have read about Mr. Caserta in the newspaper articles shocking and disgusting, and wonder why wasn't it public knowledge before. Mr. Caserta's history of sexual predation, including of minors, dates back to at least the year 2002, and many people in the community obviously have known about it for all that time, especially Caserta's victims, and apparently nobody was listening to them until now. Nobody was listening to them until Mr. Caserta decided to run for county supervisor, and now we care about it. Well, we should have cared a long time ago, and whoever knew about it should be talking about it. I myself was shocked, you know, even before I knew this, about Mr. Caserta's corrupt behavior, his behavior to just blatantly do whatever the 49ers in Levi's Stadium wanted for their own financial interest against the wishes of community. And, you know, it turns out on top of that, he's lacking in moral character in a lot of other ways. I do agree they should be removed from his position as a teacher, not just his position as an elected official. It's even more offensive and shocking that he be, you know, in a position of authority over young women who he is consistently harassing up until a few weeks ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stroker. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for bringing this issue up and everything that's kind of been happening from you guys have been taking action on it, so that's greatly appreciated. It was actually 264 days ago in this room that I first witnessed him act out against somebody else that I found just unacceptable. I was at home at the time and I was texting him saying, you need to apologize for the remarks that you just made to the mayor from the dais. His temper, his response, everything was just untenable. And from there, I just said, no, I cannot participate with you anymore. I had never seen him do the things that have now come out, and it's just been a rage of emotions. His cowardice is on display by not showing up at any meetings. You know, the flaccid response that he gave in his resignation letter doesn't even touch upon anything in terms of having any sense of accountability or sense of just awareness to what's going on. And it's disappointing, it's disgusting, and I'm thankful for all the people that have spoken up. It's been very hard for me to speak up through this process because, as we've seen with the first staffer that spoke up, he wasn't believed, he was challenged, and it becomes this political game. And I'm thankful for the women that did speak up. And I just got to say to him, later, asshole. Thank you.
I don't have any other cards, so if anybody else would like to come forward, you can just please come forward and line up. Welcome.
Thank you. Like LaDonna, I too am a therapist, and I work with kids. And listening to, I oftentimes see kids that are suicidal. I see kids that have been abused. I see kids that are neglected. But I got to tell you, listening to these two young ladies today really moved me, and it really saddened me. But what's important is that we in Santa Clara have to pick up the pieces and move forward. And this is an opportunity for us to move forward. This is an opportunity for us to appoint a council member who is going to adhere to the standards and ethics that we hold here in Santa Clara. To those that were victims, I would encourage you to reach out, to talk about it. Don't hold it inside. It's not your fault. And there are people that can and will help you get through this. So,
thank you. Good evening. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Brian Darby, and I've been teaching in this area for 30 years with adults with developmental disabilities, and I would gladly give my life for my students. And all I can say is I'm sorry to those young people. I'm sorry that happened.
Thank you, Brian. All right, next. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Karina Dominguez. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I first wanted to thank the victims. This is about them. And I just want to thank you for having the courage that it takes so many of us so long to have. This is just the beginning of your journey to healing. I know this because I have also been a victim myself. And it's really, really hard in this space to come forward. It's really, really hard to come upon the powers of be. And so I applaud this council for doing that. I applaud your courage to putting the victim first, because that's what it's about. In politics, this is a political space, but it's not politics. When there's a victim involved, there's more than politics in it. And I thank you for taking that so serious. This is not about him. This is about her and helping the victims, him or her, I don't know, find that space to begin their healing, because it's a long journey. And I hope that those paying attention, this includes our party, it's not about being a Dem, it's not about being a Republican, it's about making sure that we have qualified candidates who have values and are ethical running for these positions of power. So thank you.
Thank you, Karina. Okay, please come forward. Welcome.
I just wanted to note that Daughters Over Dollars has established a legal email that people can use to find out what their rights are for victims, and that's daughtersoverdolars@gmail.com. And we are happy to say that all the Caserta billboards are down. Again, I'm happy to see mostly females on the dais. We need to see that more often. I can't imagine the stories you can tell. With all due respect, we do not need to move forward. We need to investigate and own up to how this pedophile got so far in both his teaching and political career. To me, it's the result of a lackadaisical, at best, school district or districts and a Democratic Party and Labor Council that were content to further a well-known temperamental time bomb that gave everyone, particularly women, the creeps, so long as he represented their own narrow self-interest. And I'm a raging liberal. They even overlooked his opposition to rent control, which this city desperately needs, and I will nag you about that. All of these people were unknowing conspirators in his multi-decades abuse of children and women. And to some extent, you bear some blame as well. However, since you're a female majority, I can only imagine the abuse he's inflicted upon you too. I hope he wasn't given some golden parachute to resign. I do hope you'll make public any measures he was given to resign, any incentives, and any compensatory packages. And if he was given any, we just need to take that back. Lastly, I hope the school district pays for all the psychological needs of all victims everywhere in perpetuity. And I know some are out of the country now, because it is them who most greatly failed our children, and they need that psychological help. So I hope the school district pays for that forever for every victim that has ever existed. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please come forward. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. My name is Lydia Youngkind, and I was sexually harassed by Dominic Caserta. Last week, I decided to go public with my story because I could not take it any longer, and I agree it will take me a while to move forward. It will take me a long time probably to heal, because Dominic Caserta almost managed to take away from me what is most important to me, and that is my integrity. I was afraid that I'm not fit to work in politics. I was afraid that people would not believe me if I would actually speak up. I was afraid of him, and every time he touched me, every time he said something degrading about women, I felt insecure and helpless, and he intimidated me to a point where I assumed I had no other choice than to play along with his escapades. A friend recently told me that if it would really bother me that much what he is doing, I would actually do something about it. I know that was a thoughtless remark, but at some point I realized that he was right. Mr. Caserta almost managed to take my voice away from me and everything that defines me as a person. Sexual harassment is not a joke. It is not a misunderstanding. It is a crime, and it needs to be taken seriously. And I really hope that the City Council will take any action that is within your power to highly condemn his behavior and to not tolerate it in the future. Even if I heard that there are rumors about him for a long time, and it made me very sad what my previous speakers told, and I was saddened to hear that I was not the only one, that this was a pattern of behavior that could continue to go on and for almost 2 decades. And I'm standing here tonight to speak on behalf of some of these women, and I'm very honored, and I think it is a privilege that I can do that. And I want to thank them for confiding in me and telling me their stories. Dominic Caserta knew for a fact that I was vulnerable. I'm not an American citizen. I only moved here last fall. I am originally from Germany, and he knew that he doubted that I would actually speak up against him. He had the audacity to ask me if I would speak up on his behalf, be his character witness when the first allegations came up. And that was the moment when I realized I have to do something. This man thinks he is invincible, and he thinks he can get away with everything. Anyway, I don't want to make this any longer than I had to. I just wanted to thank you for voting the way you just did and accepting his letter of resignation. I hope he has to face criminal charges. I hope he will be held accountable for what he did to me and to other victims as well. Yeah, I just want to thank you, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you. Please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening, council members and mayor. My name is Mike Rodriguez, and I'm a former resident of Santa Clara for 48 years, in fact. I left the city in March of this year. I am also a former planning commissioner for the city and did so for 8 years. I will not address council member and the questions regarding his alleged allegations. Like most, I agree with everyone that everyone deserves due process. But this is a defining moment for Santa Clara. The city should take a hard look at itself and ask, how are we going to learn from this experience? Tonight, you will be addressing your code of ethics. I watched the news today, so that's why I'm here tonight, basically, Mayor, because you said you would do this. That's the only reason I came. Okay? So you will be addressing your code of ethics, which I participated in drafting as a planning commissioner. Many years ago, almost 20 years ago, you guys put these things up. So it's very disappointing that we have this happening almost 20 years later. When we did this work, I was very proud to be a Santa Claran, especially being the first city to adopt the code of ethics in the country. We were both the first city in the United States to adopt a code of ethics that applied to its employees, its council, its mayor, anybody appointed to the city by the, like myself. So I was very proud of that. So obviously these things have really, come back. And now I ask the council, what are you going to do about it? I feel strongly that my loss when I ran for council in 2002 had to do with this issue of citywide elections, because I did run in 2002. And it's been an issue that's come up over and over again. Today, we have no minorities on the council because it's been accused of citywide elections. Subsequent to my election, an Indian, an Asian, and many other minorities ran for this council, but none of them won. They all lost. Many have contributed the same issue as citywide elections, the citywide elections policy of the city as their main reason for losing. And in fact, multiple lawsuits have now been filed against the city of Santa Clara regarding this issue. So in closing, I'd just like to say that look at yourself, council, and ask, have we been ethical in how we've been governing our city and running our city? Unfortunately, many think not. This is not just about a council member in question, about the councilman in question. It's also about the city. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Please come forward. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Ruth Silvertobe. I teach at Santa Clara University School of Law, and I'm the supervising attorney of a clinic that assists low-income workers with problems that they face, and we do see a lot of sexual harassment claims, and it is pervasive. And I do want to thank you for taking this seriously, giving the survivors a chance to speak. I'm legal services chair of the Human Trafficking Coalition, and so we work with a lot of survivors that are traumatized as well. And I know as a mother, I had something similar happen to my daughter and other students, and it was not taken seriously. It was very parallel to this. We are now in the Me Too movement, and we're now in a moment where people are listening to survivors. And I think what we need, though, is training, because there's a lot of people with very old ideas prior to Me Too, where they make I know that the way sexual harassment cases are pursued is that the defense usually calls the women nut, slut, and gold digger, and they become the victim. And it looks like that's what happened here as well. And these are young students that are impressionable, and so it's very traumatizing. So I'd like to see the city bring in the EEOC, where I worked at one point, to do some trainings. I think the school district needs to do that. And I think that there should be a place for the survivors of this to meet and get some free counseling as well. And the ethics that you're talking about, I think it's really important to put in place, if you ever have a situation like this again, that you have procedures in place to handle them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. If anyone else would like to speak, please come forward. Anyone? Oh, sorry. I see you. Good evening.
I'm Hagag here. I have some slides. Is it possible to project?
Did you hand them to anybody?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, there he is. Okay.
I can start or wait.
Wait, do you want them up?
Yeah.
While you're speaking? Okay.
Yes, I'll need them while I'm speaking. Hussam Hagag here. First, I want to say that I believe it's shameful and cowardly that he's not here tonight. I've had my fair share of confrontations and bullying with Mr. Caserta, and I was never in his class, just here at the dais. And I recall it as if it were yesterday when I was standing here, when I applied to go on the Planning Commission, which I didn't win. And he publicly chastised me and tried to lecture me about respect. Now, I have thick skin. I clapped back, and I always have at him. But I want to commend the brave souls that came out over the course of the last week and the brave women who spoke tonight. Since we're not at the school board, I won't talk about how he was able to remain employed as a teacher for so long, but here in council, I want to talk about how was it that he got elected, especially if so many families and women knew about his behavior. And on that issue of how did he get elected, I think it's important for us to look at the system that got him elected in the first place. If you look at the election results, which are here on the slides, this is a screenshot from the Registrar of Voters. Mr. Caserta did not even win with a majority. The same numbers here. Our current election system, while it has served us for many decades, it has a flaw that people like Mr. Caserta have taken advantage of for way too long. In our system, vote splitting, which you are seeing here, is all too real. He often has bragged about how he won with 39%, but the reality is that 61% of the city did not want Mr. Caserta on the council, and yet he still won. So we have a chance in 3 weeks to change this. I was fortunate enough to serve you all as a volunteer on a committee that recommended what's called Measure A to be put on the ballot. And Measure A was designed explicitly to address the issue of vote splitting that people like Mr. Caserta have benefited from, and they've been able to fly under the radar for far too long. Caserta himself, on the dais, has stated that if a system like was being proposed in Measure A was in place, that he likely would not have been elected to his seat. That is the biggest glowing endorsement of Measure A that we could have. And so I want to applaud those that came out and spoke against his behavior. I'm not trying to overshadow that with this plea for Measure A, but I want to urge everybody that we have a momentous opportunity right now to prevent this from happening again in the future and to prevent people like Mr. Caserta from getting into office by taking advantage of vote splitting. And I urge everybody to join all the women who are on this council right now who voted for, in support of, or endorsed Measure A that's on the ballot in June so that we can prevent this in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Wes Mukuyama, and I'm a resident here for 44 years. I oppose what he just said because we filed a suit 2011 against the at-large voting, and we had to re-sue the city again. And yes, today we have a preliminary report that the judge voted in our favor against at-large voting. But Measure A is not the answer. We need to have 6.
Are we talking about Councilmember Caserta? That's the item on the agenda?
I think it has something to do with the city council itself, who has denied all of these things that are happening. And we know now there is one city council person that will vote against Measure A. So it's not a unanimous thing that is happening. Mike Kaku and Yumori Kai Kaku are also people who sued the city.
Don't want to bring this up. It's just in terms of what was said before. It's just that I think the discussion is a little off topic, but I did want to make sure that bringing up that Measure A and everything was
that's
not,
fine. I just try. I'm trying. There's sensitive issues in the room right now. I want to stick to the issue. We do have public presentations as well.
We are definitely in sympathy with the
All right.
council's
Thank
vote
you.
against
Thank you
Dominic
for that.
Caserta.
Thank you very much. All right. Anyone else? Please come forward. Good evening.
Hello, I'm Kevin Park. I ran against Dominic Caserta in 2014.
We saw that. We saw that.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. I look like this now. I'm older. So I would like to, first of all, thank people like Dorothy Rosa, who actually encouraged me to run because she said, people like Caserta, we need to get him out. And I listened to that. And during the campaign, I'll also say a lot of mean things were said to me, but Fortunately, I was lucky. I was not a student. I didn't have to listen to it, so I did what I do best. I just ignored it. But I will tell you, where I feel most slighted is that the city, we had our ethics forums, and the last ethics forums, we basically said, we're not going to have an ethics forum because there were no ethics violations. We had, the city said that to me, and how do I feel slighted? It wasn't anything Caserta said, it's the inaction of what the city did. Right, so during that meeting, the last word, the final word, I actually brought up a lot of things, even a police report against Dominic Caserta, which was completely ignored. I think that Tom Shanks is no longer with the city, and I think there's a big reason for that. But at the same time, I'm also to go to today and to every other interaction I have with City Council, which is I try as much as I can to be rational, logical, straightforward, and tell you what my background is and why I want to be part of the city. I have never tried in any way to undermine, subvert any organization or any group that I've been with, and yet I do not feel like people treat me with respect here on City Council. Meaning when I leave City Council, often my name is brought up because they say, well, Kevin Park is not even here. I've heard the mayor say this to me exactly, and I'm usually right outside talking to people because I have better things to do than to sit in City Council and wait for the vote that I can predict. And I think at this point, we need to make it very clear that everyone here needs to be treated with respect as well, which is, I supported many of you for City Council, but I didn't vote for you, I didn't campaign for you because you are better than us, better than we are, either morally or even more intense, certainly not more mentally or intelligence-wise. We voted for you because we thought you would listen. We voted for you because we thought that you would take our concerns and bring them forward and put those concerns above the people who are outside the city, like developers and like other people. But I would like to see more of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please come forward. If you'd like to speak, please come forward. Oh, thank you. Okay, this floor is open for. I understand.
Good evening.
Welcome, sir.
Madam Mayor and City Council. He actually led me in right there. Kevin, he did. I came here to suggest that either we leave the seat that represents Dominic empty, or we elect him or assign him to take the seat, because he had the next largest majority in that position. I do not believe that we should have another unelected person on the seat. On the council. We need to have somebody who got the majority next to what Dominic, whatever. Anyway, I'm nervous.
No, that's okay. It's okay.
Anyway, that's basically all I wanted to say. He would be the perfect person for the seat because he got the next listed majority.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you. Please come forward. Anyone who'd like to speak. Welcome.
I had no intention of speaking. Gabby Seagrave, citizen in the city. I appreciate that you've held this meeting today. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the victims that have come forward and the courage that it takes them. I appreciate what the police department's about to do to investigate and clean up as much as they can, and I trust the work they do is very honorable. So I wanted to bring it back to the women and the victims and put it back on track of what we're here to talk about. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. My name's Aleda Nunez. I'm Savannah Nunez's mom. And thank you for having this meeting here. It's been a long time coming for Caserta to be found out who he is. And it's just really disappointing to me that, first of all, that he's still teaching at the school. That is just, that just blows my mind, because this has been going on for years, and the fact that the police department has had reports of this, the city council members have known about his actions, teachers, the school. We went to the school and met with the principal and complained to the principal. We sat and spoke with them, and they said, yes, we know about it. We're doing something about it. And yet he's still there teaching. That is shameful. That is shameful. And the school board needs to, they're the ones that need to be investigated as well as to why it's been many, many years and he's still there. You know, so everybody needs to get to the bottom of this and just how he was allowed to stay in the school for so many years after everybody knowing his behavior. You guys let him stay there. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Allison Flutie. I was a student at Santa Clara High School as well. I didn't have Mr. Caserta, but I had many friends, and I knew of his reputation because of the way that he had treated my friends. And as someone that has worked in education and now works in mental health in this county,
Okay, take your time.
And just, I'm glad that he's no longer going to be part of city council, because over the years, as I would see his name on little signs on people's yards or things like that, I would think of my friends who have to drive by that or walk by that and get those reminders every day of what they had to go through, you know, in a place that's supposed to be safe, you know, a classroom. And I think, yeah, the next step is, how do we get him out of the classroom and make sure that people are able to be safe and get their education and not feel like they have to comply with whatever he wants because, you know, he's the teacher. Sorry.
Okay, take your time.
I just think this is something that's really, really important, and that now that it's come up, I don't want to see it be forgotten in 2 weeks. I think that this is something that's going to stick with everyone that's been affected with it for the rest of their lives, and it's going to affect future generations as well if nothing's done right now. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Ian Crueldad. I was Dominic Caserta's former campaign manager. I don't have a speech ready, but I would like to thank all the victims for having the courage to say their stories. For 15 years, Dominic has gone away with sexual harassment, bullying, and I'm just so shocked that only now that has come forward. I personally witnessed sexual harassment while I was his campaign manager, and he has bullied me as well. When my resignation letter got accidentally leaked to the media, he gave me a call, asked me to recant it, and I said no. And that's when he told me he would come after me, the 49ers would come after me, his consultants would come after me, and then he reminded me that he would come after me. And I guess all I want to say is that it's about time city administration, the school board, and the police take the proper steps to make sure that someone like this doesn't get away with it for 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
I think many of you know who I am. I never fill out a card. There is a reason I don't fill out a card, and part of it is to do with Mr. Caserta. I've never wanted my name published anywhere. I've been asked by the Weekly who I am. I refuse to give my name. I think it's worth noting that, yes, there are many students, and I feel it's very, very sad and it's very disappointing to have heard this come about, but it's time. It's time that it did, and it's time that all of you answer to some of this and you understand what has happened over the years. But it's also time to acknowledge that there are people that have come to City Council that refuse, like me, to give their name, and there are people who have come to City Council who have been abused over the years, and we've witnessed it. Somebody in particular who's not here tonight, who I wish was here, because I think she needs a lot of healing and has been hurt greatly. And there are men that have been admonished at times too. And I think it's all very well as women to say, yes, it's about the women, but it is also about the men. We are human after all, and we are the same. So it is about men and it is about women. It is not just one particular sex. And yet I am a great believer in women and that we can make a difference in the world and that we do make a difference in the world. And if it wasn't for people in my generation, some of the younger women would not have what they have today, because our generation, and I would dare say some of you up here, are of that same ilk. In 1975, when we had the International Year of the Women, when we did make a difference to the world and we stood up to that, and the younger generation forget that and do not understand what we went through. And though this is a great chance to make it right, it is also a chance for you to look at yourselves and determine what needs to be done going forward. And it is not the answer of be it somebody who's a minority of some kind or a religious minority. It is the answer of Santa Clara that we need. We need a person of Santa Clara, not an outsider, not somebody who's just a newcomer, but somebody who has made a difference in our community already, somebody who has stood the ground in the test and needs to be up there listening to what we have been saying for years about what is wrong with our city. And not hear it like there is something disgustingly wrong with it, but hear it like we have complaints and we are sick of being told that we don't have a complaint. But we do have complaints and they are not being heard, as somebody said earlier today. And I rest my case.
Thank you. Please come forward. Welcome, sir.
Honorable Counsel, General Public. I came to talk about something else completely different. I did not know what was going on. I live slightly across the school. I want to tell you something about, my daughter used to do this cabin leader in Watsonville Science Camp. For 3 years she did it. And she turned 18. She wanted to do this same again. I had to go to Santa Cruz, Monterey County Police Department, get a background check on an 18-year-old girl. Now we have people running for council. Isn't there anything like a background check? I'm just wondering. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward. Welcome.
Hi there, Herbie Batia, and I didn't have anything particularly that I was intending to say, but I was moved enough to say it that recently I had to give an award to Maitri for standing up to support domestic violence at home, and in that process I learned about some stats. So I think I want to help us look forward. I don't want to diminish those by telling them that we're going to sit here and just discuss this today, but actually take action. I am myself a survivor. As a child, this happened to me, and I'm totally fine with it because I feel like I dealt with my way. But I want to say that for everybody else that's in this room, that if you face that, it's fine. You are powerful enough to get past it, and we don't have to make you feel any less, except that you are more powerful now, but we have to take action. So for everybody in this room, the lesson to be learned is that we are not safe from any of this just because we love our city doesn't mean that it's perfect, but we have an opportunity to make it better. 1 out of every 3 women will face sexual harassment at some point in their life. 1 out of every 4 men will face sexual harassment sometime in their life. And what this is a lesson is, I'm not here to make this about Dominic. I'm not here to make it about our victims only. I'm here to make it that there are more victims in this room that probably don't even know that it's okay to come up and talk about what they've gone through. And let's take this opportunity to make our city better and say, if that is happening anywhere, it's unacceptable, and we will do something about it. We'll put some policies and programs in place to make our city the best city it can be by addressing these rather than just making it about this situation today only. So thank you for hearing me out and letting me have the opportunity to share some of that with you.
Thank you, Habir. Anyone else? Last call. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you all for that testimony. It's very powerful testimony, very touching testimony, and it's testimony that is it's time that it that's taken place. I know that tonight we have a couple of actions we're looking at. One is to, yes, City Attorney?
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to, in response to one comment that was made, I just wanted to make it clear to the public. Councilmember Caserta has received absolutely nothing from the city. There has been no compensation, no promises, no agreements, nothing. I was in, just to finish, I received his resignation from his attorney this morning, and there were no conditions whatsoever. This was an unconditional resignation.
Thank you. Thank you for that, clarification on that. Okay. So I have some lights on from the council. I think we're going to start some discussion. The item we have on is the censure policy. We're talking about also another item which was brought up was the potential, what are going to be our options for filling the seat in the future. And I know we cannot take any action tonight, but looking for some kind of referral to the city attorney, city manager, city clerk to come back with at the next week. So we're going to start with Vice Mayor Watanabe, and I'll save my comments for the end.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. Did you want to, you mentioned a couple of items. Did you want to take maybe 2 separate actions regarding?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, thank you everybody who has spoken this evening. You're very brave, as everybody has said. It's not easy to come forward and say the things and share the things that you've experienced. I know some of you personally, and it really hurts me to know what you've gone through with Mr. Caserta. My daughter is presently a student at Santa Clara High School. She's a junior. And when I learned that she was scheduled to take ethics next year and could possibly have him as a teacher, I submitted an email to the principal stating that I did not want my daughter anywhere near his class next year. I want to thank the mayor for her leadership over the past week, for what she has done to make sure that this was not skirted under the rug, that we took action on this, because as the sign says, time is up. There is no reason why anybody should ever have to tolerate the kind of behavior that many of you have talked about this evening. In this time of Me Too movements, this is an opportunity for many of us to be able to finally speak up and talk about the things that we've endured for many years. I'm also appreciative to the advocacy group that has made themselves available this evening, and I hope that maybe some of the young women and maybe some of the young men that are here this evening would take advantage of that opportunity and avail themselves to it. I'm happy that the police chief is here. I know the police department has been taking reports, but I think probably maybe a lot more has been shared this evening as a result of this meeting, and that, a lot will be taken note of to use as well with the reports that are being received to be able to take action on them. I think it's very important that we do explore our code of ethics and what was created by Mr. Rodriguez and probably a team of other planning commissioners over 20 years ago. I appreciate the fact that he took the time to be here this evening and talk about that work that he did. Santa Clara does pride itself on standing by its ethics, but I think in this moment in time, it is definitely an opportunity to take a look at that code of ethics again and make sure that we are standing up for what we believe in. We do offer training. There is mandatory training, but maybe we need to take a look at that training as well and see if there's something that we can do to make it better. Santa Clara is a wonderful city, and I'm very proud, to live here. I'm very proud to see what in the last 2 years that I've been a part of this council, to see the change in direction that's been taking place. We've been working hard to make change for some of the things that have happened in the past. It's not always easy. Things don't happen overnight.
But I will tell you that Mayor Gilmore is working very hard. And she runs up against some obstacles sometimes. She probably wouldn't admit this, but she runs up against some obstacles in her quest to make this a better place. So I believe in her. I believe in what she's done this past week. I appreciate what she's done. And I appreciate, again, all of the people that have come and spoken tonight to talk about what they've gone through. Like everybody has said, it does take a lot of courage, and we need to support and stand by each other and start to make a change. And Mayor, when the moment is appropriate, I'd like to make a motion for the admission and censure policy, which was prepared by our city attorney.
Okay. Why don't you make that now?
Well, I'd like to just...
We can just get that motion on the floor.
Sure.
And then we'll go to the other motion.
Okay. I would just like to say that in the interest of the city of Santa Clara and to uphold our ethical standards, I move that we adopt the policy as outlined by our city attorney for admonition and censure.
So there's a motion and a second on that. All right. Thank you, Vice Mayor, for those comments. Councilmember Colstead.
Thanks, Mayor. First of all, I want to echo some comments that you made this morning at the news conference and thanking all the victims for stepping forward and reporting this activity. That is why we're here tonight discussing this. And I just want to review a couple of things that have happened in the last few hours to put some perspective to this. Dominic Caserta has resigned from the city of Santa Clara. He's returned all his issued city equipment. He's cleaned out his office space at City Hall, and he is no longer an employee here. The behavior that was reported by former students and victims was in connection with Mr. Caserta's role and his duties as a school teacher and his activities politically, and none of these alleged behaviors was in connection with his role or duties here as a Santa Clara council member. The mayor took the leadership to agendize this item so it could be discussed today. And that took a lot of courage, I think. The city manager encouraged people in the community to report these incidents to the police department so that they could be investigated. That showed great leadership, I felt. As soon as the city became aware that these allegations had been initiated, these allegations had been initiated, they initiated timely and appropriate actions to deal with them. Thus far, I think the mayor and the city manager and the city staff and the police department have been the only agencies that have come to grips with these behaviors. At this point, I look forward to the results of the investigations that I think are being conducted by Santa Clara Unified School District and Santa Clara Police Department. But so folks get a clear perspective, this is an action item and the city's been moving on it as soon as they learned about it. And these activities that are being alleged didn't occur at City Hall or in connection with someone's duties as a council member. They occurred in connection with somebody's activities as a school teacher or a politician. So we have to have a clear understanding of when these things happened. And I look forward to supporting that motion and thanking the leadership around here for doing a good job.
Thank you, Councilmember Colstead. Councilmember Mahan.
First, I do want to thank all of the speakers for coming forward. I want to thank you for your honesty and your heartfelt testimony. It's a difficult thing to speak about. It's a difficult thing to listen to, but we are listening. And I thank you again for having the courage to speak to us and speak to us frankly and openly. Healing can only begin with acceptance. When I was diagnosed with cancer 6 years ago, the hardest thing for me to do was to accept that diagnosis. But until I did, I couldn't begin treatment. So I had to come to acceptance, to begin treatment, to begin healing. And 6 years later, I am healed. I've recovered from the worst disease that you can imagine. And that's what we've begun here tonight. We've begun here tonight by listening and accepting. The next step is going to be moving us forward. There are going to be other opportunities for testimony, for judgments. We're not a judge, we're not a jury. That process will continue. And there will come a time when that process is concluded and judgments are made. I believe that the only way our city should move forward is with a free and open and transparent election. I want to say to anyone who has to accept a difficult diagnosis or a violative experience or an invasion of your rights, please know that no one can take your dignity, and you are not alone. We must also restore, though, the trust and dignity of our city, and I think that can only be done through an election process to fill this vacancy. Not an appointment. 5 people should not decide the future of this city. We have a vacancy now, and it shouldn't be up to only 5 people to say who should fill this seat. We need to have that kind of an election process between now and November that's going to allow us to talk about these things more, talk about them openly, bring all of these issues to bear on the next election. Yes, let's start investigating, candidates before they run. Let's start talking about issues that may bear upon someone's character. It's important in an election. And only an election can get us through that process. An appointment with 5 people doesn't even come close to opening that kind of dialogue. In the statement of decision, it's been brought up here tonight that we have a flawed election system. In the statement of decision that the judge issued just today, he found, after a trial on the issue, that Santa Clara is guilty of racially polarized voting. The judge says that Santa Clara has a history of discrimination. The judge says that the city is liable for violating the California Voter Rights Act. Now, the violation of civil rights, the Voters' Right Act, is really only reformed by district elections, not dividing the city in 2. In every case where districting has had to be judicially imposed, it's been imposed on a per-seat district. 6 seats, 6 districts. 21 seats like San Jose, 21 districts or whatever they have. 5 seats, 5 districts. Not 2 districts. No, because
the issue at hand is
this
not
is
the election.
bearing on the issue. It is fundamental to the issue. Because the next
it's disrespectful to the people here in the audience.
The next referral is going to be to the city to decide how to fill this vacancy. That is absolutely bearing on this issue tonight. Because the only way to fill the vacancy in fairness, in equity to the city, and to begin the healing process that this issue has brought forward is by an open election, and that would be my motion next, is to, well, we can't do it, it's not on the calendar, on the agenda, but by consensus to refer to the city attorney and city manager to come back with what would be the election process to fill this vacancy, not an appointment process.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Neill.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight and for the very thoughtful comments. Obviously, the emotion is palpable, and I think we are all feeling very drained at what has been coming. And I think people have heard, and I know I had heard some rumors and things over the years, and actually did pursue that, did talk as recently as 2 weeks ago to about concerns that I didn't have proof of, but concerning Mr. Councilmember Caserta. One of the things that we talked about, and Mr. Rodriguez, who I had talked to in years past when we looked at different ways of looking at the election system, that whole idea of the Council of Trust, and it's a larger concept than just a you know, a sitting body. But it was like kind of a look at how all we operate. And it was to me a kind of a way of conducting government that we should all aspire to. And I think obviously with the kind of what has happened, some of the grievances that people have, some of the things that have happened, and our whole level of dialogue in this country, we have not lived up to that standard. But I think we have to all look very deeply within ourselves, each one of us, to say, what can we do to really aspire to that kind of trust amongst the members of the community, the elected officials, the staff that you employ, to make a lot of these things happen. And, you know, a lot of times that looking at ourselves to begin with is painful. And this situation is particularly painful to me. As many of you know, I served on the school board for 8 years. I'm a graduate of Santa Clara Unified Schools. And because this involves a teacher and the teaching profession, which to me is almost considered a sacred calling. And so I think, you know, we talk about trust. Well, there's no greater trust than when the parents or the community place their children and young people in the hands of someone to help educate and form them. So this to me is a very, very deep violation of trust at an elemental level. And one of the things also that, as I've seen this happen, a number of you have heard me tell a story about my mother, and she was a very dedicated teacher in Santa Clara Unified. And decades ago, when I was, I think, still in high school, when the whole concept of a mandatory reporter was very new, she took a really big risk because she sensed that something was very wrong with one of her pupils, and that pupil's father was a person of influence in this city. And at first she was getting not support from principal and administration at her school, and she pursued her concerns and took efforts to protect that child. And it turned out that, yes, the child was being physically abused and beaten by his father, and that his older sister was had been sexually abused for years. And I've taken a lot of pride in that. The actions that my mother took stopped that situation and helped put that family on a path to healing. So I particularly, when I know of people who perhaps have not taken comments seriously, when they've overlooked, or maybe our whole society has not taken these things as seriously as they should have, we have all failed each other. And, you know, we all hear that expression, the truth shall set you free. But really, we're not free until we as a community really take action. We can understand what has happened, but until we really do something and look at why have we allowed things to happen. You know, we can all say we didn't know, but our structures have been set up so that these things continue. And so, you know, maybe now that this has been a very deep violation here within our community, because of the additional trust levels of being an elected official and being a teacher, I think to me that resonates really deeply with me. And I beg to differ a little bit from one of my colleagues has said, because I think we also have to look at what's gone on here at the city and, you know, what perhaps has happened. I think we know that there has been well, there's been allusions to it, things that have happened with members of this council with interactions. And also I'm concerned about our staff. And I know about things that have been said to me about how people who are employees of the city who have felt that same fear have, that they have been bullied and put in, you know, possibly feared that something would happen with their job. And so I think we have to look at that. And I think we also have to look at, now I'm having people who have wanted to do business with this city, who are legitimate business people, or have other agencies that have wanted to work with the city, and have they been, in a way, taken advantage of too, or because of that threat of the use of power over, you know, so I think it's, you know, if we're really going to be honest with ourselves and look at being set free, we do have to look at all of that and go back to that, the the ethical values that the mayor has talked about, that the city attorney read. And, you know, I give the mayor a lot of credit for being a very strong leader in this. And this is very stressful, and it's taken a lot of toll on our mayor because she's been one of the victims too. You know, there's been a lot of abuse heaped in this council room and elsewhere that, you know, it's like, okay, that's politics, but maybe we have to say, I mean, time's up, the signs have been held up today, and maybe we really need to say, we're not going to have that kind of discourse, as my mother would say, that kind of coarseness. Let's not be coarse. You know, so, and I do think also that we have to help our schools and other institutions, whether they're clubs or the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts or the school district or churches or synagogues or whatever, that we all bring those values to how we're going to interact anytime we come together and what our expectations will be. So, like I said, I think we just have to really look within ourselves first, and then look at those who we maybe have unknowingly allowed to perpetuate damage on our community. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. Yes, if you have something quick,
Hi,
I'll allow it.
So you wrote a letter to the principal of the school. How long ago?
Oh, can we do this
And
after?
you guys have all known for years, heard things for years. But yet now it's time for us to trust you and to stick together. And so why is it just coming out? This is stupid. Like, I'm sorry. I made reports 11 years ago when I was a minor. And you guys have known forever. We don't trust you. I don't trust you. I mean,
I did not know to this level. I did not know. I was on the board. I did not know that those actions had been filed. The board, I mean, I can say at least when I was on the board, we were not told that. So that was, I think, a big mistake.
All right, Councilmember Davis.
I didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night. I woke up at 1 o'clock, and this has been weighing on my mind, and I feel sorry for the people that have been victimized by him, because not only were you victimized, but I myself endured a lot of his bully. And my husband had to sit home and watch this on television and not be able to really do anything, because in my career, I'm expected to have a little bit of harassment come at me. But the courage that you ladies had to come up and do this, because years ago, I was also verbally bullied. I went through what you went through. You go, you talk, you say things, and when people don't help you, you feel like you're the person. But let me tell you something, girls, they're taking the power away from you, and you can't let them do that. So take it back. And you are here doing that, and I applaud you for that. Hopefully I'll get some sleep tonight. We took actions tonight because it did come to us. He was a council member. The school district will have to do what they will have to do. And you have heard that some people have heard these rumors, and it's been around town or whatever. But the fact that we are doing something to do a censorship so that this never happens again is on us. And we have to, the buck stops here. We have to do it. But the school district will have to do it. The police department has to do their thing. You can't really say what's going to happen, but let's just find out. And for Mr. Rodriguez, who came and we had this code of ethics, I'm really sorry that we failed. Somewhere along the line, we failed. And we have to fix it. So I really think that this venue was good. I think let's heal, let's move on. And we have a lot of business. This man has disrupted city business. I don't like the way he treated the mayor. I don't like the way he treated my city manager. I don't like the way he treated some of the women up on this council. But he's gone. So let's move on, let's heal. And ladies, I want you to heal. I want you to be strong. I want you to take your power back. It's time. And that's why I will support this motion for this censorship, so this will never happen again on any other council. And that is a fact. So thank you for coming this evening. I know this was emotional for you, emotional for me, and we have to heal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Davis. As you see, I don't see any other speakers on the dais. this has taken a toll on a lot of us. And I think that, you know, we like to call it the Me Too generation, but the Me Too victims are ones that are real people with real stories. And I just want to say that this has come to light for us officially when we had the news reports just last week, and we had some very brave young women and men. I want to put the men in there too, because harassment goes for both genders, that they came forward to take the first step. And I think that is something that is so brave, but it's indicative of the new generation. The new generation, the young people, the victims, the alleged victims that had come forward last week and are coming forward now are the age of my 2 older children, same age, same generation, different. This generation is so promising because they're not accepting these types of behaviors to them. They're not accepting where in my generation, the older generation, we accepted a lot more because we didn't feel like we had a voice that we could speak out. And even if we did, nobody was listening. And so now this generation is not having any of that. Their voices are being heard. Their voices are going to be heard loud and clear. Their voices were heard by me loud and clear. And I want to be part of this new generation and the new way we act when we hear things that are wrong, when there's alleged sexual harassment, alleged, terrible behavior. I am not going to sit back, especially on a female majority council. In the position that I'm in, I am not going to sit back and let that happen. It's not okay. And I know that legally, there's only so much we can do, but I want to push it to the limit to do as much as we can without violating anybody's rights. I don't want to violate anybody's rights, but I think right now I think we're up to 10, maybe more complaints to our police department. I think our district attorney is going to be looking at this. We're going to take action. We're going to do what we can do. We're talking about it now, and I don't want to leave the impression that we all want to heal, we all want to move on, but we're going to make changes as to how things are going to happen. And we're not going to accept anymore bullying of our council members, of each other, bullying of our staff, bullying of the public. I think that this has really brought to light for me, as a leader here in this city, that things are going to change here. And I really want to thank the young people that have brought forward these allegations, because you know what? We hear you. We hear you now. We believe you, and we support you. So I know we have victim advocates here. Please take advantage of it, anybody that needs to this evening. But I think the whole dialogue, the whole narrative is going to change here. And let me tell you, if there's unturned stones, if there's loose ends, if there's any type of issues that have come across along the last 20 years where the city didn't act in any way, shape, or form, we're going to find out. And we're going to pursue it. And we're going to be transparent as much as we can. We're going to be transparent, and we're still going to respect the victims' privacies and everything. But I'm tired of talking about it. I want to take action. I want to do what we can, and I want to change the narrative around here. I think the young men and women that came forward, not just tonight, but what I see online, what I see to the newspapers, and I want to thank the newspapers for really pursuing this, because maybe some people in town have been talking about this for a long time, but nobody's done anything about it. Nobody's done anything about it. And it's about time. It took some very young people to come forward, so brave to come forward and put this in our face. So thank you. Thank you for putting it in our face and letting us know that our actions, our behaviors, everything that we do in the past, it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work in today's society. And we have to do better, and we have to protect our young residents, you know, everyone that's involved in this particular situation. And you know what? It's not going to be the last. And that's why we're looking at passing a censure policy. We've not had to have one in the past, in the history of our city. And we do now. We do now with this situation, because we're limited in terms of, you know, what we can do if a council member goes astray. Fortunately, he resigned. Former council member Dominic Caserta resigned. So we don't have to deal with that, but it doesn't mean he will be the last one. So I think this is beginning of healing, but it's also beginning of a new process. And we're not just going to talk about it this evening and let it go away. It's going to be in the forefront, at least with this council at this point. So thank you, everyone, for coming. Let's start with this particular motion on the censure policy, and then we'll talk about what our options are for filling this seat. So if we could have the voting for the censure policy. Please register your vote. Someone didn't vote? Go out and go in. Okay, and that passes unanimously. All right, our next item is going to be how we fill the seat. In terms of bringing back, I'd like to ask the council if we could ask our staff to bring back our options for the next meeting. City Attorney, would you like to make some comments on that?
I'd like to say two things. First of all, just one comment on what just was discussed on council. I'd like to remind you of your code of ethics, 1F, and that is, I show respect for persons, confidences. Councilmember Mahan, I would appreciate your attention. Yes, thank you. As a representative of the city, I will be ethical. Number F says, I show respect for persons, confidences, and information designated as confidential. We have ongoing litigation, and I caution you not to speak in public about anything to do with the confidential nature of the litigation that is ongoing. If statements you make about ongoing litigation jeopardize the city's position, jeopardize the taxpayers, I please refer you to that and make your own judgments about whether or not you're being ethical when you discuss confidential aspects of litigation. The next thing I'd like to do is simply put up the slide that shows the charter section that is
the vacancy
that deals with vacancies.
Okay.
So basically, this is the full text of Charter Section 703. This deals with vacancies. So in the event the city council, so if there is a vacancy in any elective office, it can be filled by appointment by the city council by a 4/5 vote of the remaining members. That means that now that there are 6 members, it would take 5 votes to fill that vacancy. If you want to fill the vacancy, it would have to be done within 30 days. And if that vacancy is filled, that person would sit in that office until the election in November, which is the end of former council member Caserta's term. So that's about all the information I can give you tonight on how vacancies work. I just thought it'd be good to get that information out ahead of time, since there's only 30 days for you to consider what you want to do. But we can come back next Tuesday with a full discussion, because there's a little bit of a wrinkle in terms of what you might want to do depending on whether Measure A passes or not. Okay, so we'll bring back a report next Tuesday with a full.
Do you need a vote for us to do that, or
no,
can we just do it by consensus?
We'll assume
bring it back
that
next
you
week?
want us to bring that back.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, sounds good.
Thank you. Councilmember Mahan.
Yes, thank you. I do want to assure everyone that anything that I commented on the California Voters' Act litigation was quoted directly from the Statement of Decision, which is a public document. Anyone can view it. It's on the public record. You can get it online. You can go down to the courthouse and get it. It's public information.
Okay, obviously she didn't hear you, City Attorney. Councilmember Davis?
So by consensus, City Attorney, you're going to bring back the options for us to appoint. All right. So next week, you're going to bring back options for us to appoint?
In conjunction with the city manager, we'll be providing a staff report
Okay.
on the choices that council would want to consider about whether to appoint. And principally, there's going to be some issues with regard to geography about where a potential appointed council member would be living, depending on if Measure A passes or not. It's a little bit complicated considering the timing of how this has all happened.
We'll have that discussion next week.
You can have that discussion next week.
So it's possible that if we use the map that was already drawn, we would have to look at somebody from the south side?
We're going to talk about it
Well,
next week.
we'll provide a discussion, and you can either we will agendize it in a fashion so that you could appoint somebody next week or at some future date, depending on how you would decide.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Thank you. And thank you all for coming if you're here just for this issue. Thank you.
That was fun.